Hey everybody, and welcome to Geeking Out About It. I'm Kayleen.
I'm Austin.
And I'm Kaylin.
And today we're going to be talking about The Simpsons.
So, The Simpsons is a very long-running TV show that is a satirical depiction of American life. The show first aired on December 17th of 1989 after a series of short sketches on The Tracy Ullman Show. It is currently in its 33rd season and shows no sign of stopping.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It is definitely a very popular show. So we should definitely talk about some of the main characters and why we love the show. To start off, the most main known character is Homer Simpson, which is the father. And he's basically a donut and beer lover, and he has a lot of popular catchphrases, but the most known is probably when he says, "Dough." I don't even know how to say it, but it's really funny. And what I really love about his character, though, is that he's not just the aloof father. He's the writers have really given him more depth over the years and more layers and more dynamic as a character. So I think that's really interesting to see. And with all the characters too, they've really grown a lot. And I really love that. So yeah.
Although I suppose now would be a really good time to mention before we get into the rest of them. Mm-hmm. When she says they grow a lot, they don't actually technically change. They don't remember what happened in previous episodes. It's sort of one of those shows where the status quo is constantly reset so that they can do whatever wild shenanigans they want to and still come back to the same basic old setup that they were using. But the characters themselves have become more complicated over time because the viewers and the writers remember everything that the characters know and everything they've done, and they needed to add more layers to make them more interesting. And since you're running a show for 33 seasons, you do start to get to know the characters you're writing quite well, I would say.
For sure, yeah.
But they do actually reset every episode practically.
Yeah, it's not they're not aging or evolving, but their the development of the characters keep going.
Yeah.
And we're moving on. Sorry, just a quick interruption.
Yeah.
But since we talked about Homer, we gotta mention Marge, which is his wife, and the mother of the three kids that are also all in the family. She has a iconic voice. I can't do that. I tried to work on it this morning. I can't do a Marge impression, but I feel like it's very impressive if you can't do a Marge impression. That's really hard to do.
I can try, but I might embarrass myself on television. It's just for you guys. Homer! I don't know how to talk any of the rest of the stuff, but there's my impression. I'm done.
She has a very distinct voice,
yeah,
for sure.
I also don't have a 4-foot-tall beehive for a hair.
That is true.
Yeah,
the hair is very iconic.
Yeah, she's canonically 8 feet tall with the hair. Anyway,
Imagine.
moving on. Moving on to the oldest kid that they have in the family, Bart the Troublemaking Son, who's definitely not a 32-year-old woman. The voice actor is a 32-year-old woman, by the way. That's the reason the joke's funny. And he constantly gets himself into trouble, constantly is causing issues for everybody. He is in a war of violence with his father, although neither of them considers it so much as a war, more of a prank war. They're cartoons. They're pretty much impervious to damage. And he has quite the rivalry with his sister, I would say, although she would see it more as he is a loser and she is better than him.
Yeah, that leads to Lisa, which I think she's my personal favorite character of the show. She's so cool. She's a middle child. She's super smart. She's an activist for
everything,
yeah. She's very girl bossy, if you will.
Yes.
She's also vegetarian, which is one of
I love that. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, one of the top episodes are that I've at least seen and know about is the one where they go to the meat farm or whatever, and she's this is gross, and fights for it. So she's very cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then the baby, her name is Maggie, and Maggie doesn't ever speak. She never says a word. There might be an episode where she says one word or something, and that was crazy, but she never speaks. But also she's definitely one of the best characters, even though she doesn't ever speak.
I feel like babies in adult TV shows are so fun, or they're just it's such a nonsense
Well, I think
character.
it actually is Maggie who caused this, but she is effectively an extremely high-skill, high-power character who just doesn't say anything and looks like a baby. But she's got Kill Bill-esque levels of ninja power.
She does. She shows up at the perfect times, and she just
Nuclear physics
is wholesome,
easy for her.
Yeah.
Dad makes a mistake at the plant, she fixes it.
True.
Exactly.
Exactly.
imagine being a baby in a or an animated TV show is just, you're too powerful for
And I
this
believe
world.
it is her that is responsible for that.
Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah.
But of course, the family is not the only characters in The Simpsons. There are a number of other side characters that are recurring, considering it's been on for so long. Yeah. We've got Grandpa Simpson, who is my personal favorite out of the side characters because I kind of like the grumpy old man's trope. I wonder why. It's not like I'm a living grumpy old man or anything. And then we've got the bartender that he spends all the time with.
Yeah, Mo is the bartender, and it's hard for me to pick a favorite character, to be honest. I love all the characters, and they all just add this perfect dynamic. But Mo is like one of those characters that's just like, he's kind of sketchy, and he's got some very interesting stuff he's always doing or talking about. He's kind of weird, but honestly, I really love his character. I think it's very interesting to watch what he's like up to, and his conversations with Homer.
Very mischievous, it's like he's cool.
He's a very funny character, I feel like, that should get more credit sometimes.
For sure. Next we got Milhouse, which is Bart's best friend. He's got blue hair, but he's kind of uncool. Doesn't really, I don't know.
Yeah, he's the uncool friend, but that's okay. There's also Mr. Burns, which is Homer's boss at the Springfield nuclear power plant. And he's kind of the antagonist throughout the show, but he often does more bad than good. But he's very rich and powerful, and I don't know, his character to me is just absolutely hilarious. Like the situations that he gets put in and the way he talks is, I don't know, it's just really funny to me to watch.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I can't say that he's the antagonist so much. I don't know that it has one, but he definitely turns into it for a lot of things.
Right.
But the person who actually goes up against Homer the most often is his neighbor, Ned Flanders, who is the religious neighbor who says his, the 1950s-esque catchphrases. You got the Oakley Dokley kind of thing that's going on with it, where it's like, oh, I'm just the small town guy.
I'm living life.
Hi diddly ho, neighborino. No.
There you go.
Yeah, he's a funny character for sure.
And there are many others, but we don't really need to talk too much about all of them. There are just so many side characters that rapidly show up again and again and again and again in the show. Yeah, and they mostly only get used for jokes, or sometimes they get whole episodes that are just focused around them because you got 33 seasons of a show, like I keep coming back to. There's a lot of episodes.
Sure.
You have to be able to dive into every character in at least once. So they kind of do.
Yeah.
It makes the town feel not more real, but you get to see into everyone's lives, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah. I remember watching the show when my dad was watching it a long time ago, and I just remember not really understanding what was going on whatsoever, but I just thought it was really funny, and I would just laugh at it. But I think kind of as I've gotten a little bit older and you kind of watch the show again, you get more of the jokes, and I still feel there's so much that I still don't even get, and just as you watch it and grow yourself, you'll kind of get more of the jokes, and I think it becomes almost more real, the show, you kind of understand it more, and I really love the evolution of it, and I definitely love the characters, and
it's kind of there's something for everybody.
There's something for everybody, for sure.
But now that we've covered all of our top characters, we're gonna go to a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk about more about The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
Encounter a single mean person, as much as you insist that you're mean, Jada.
I don't know if I've...
For Black History Month here at Oregon State.
Keeping the ball for there's not a baseball.
Yeah. Oh, it's all eliminated.
Oh, right in the gut. That was.
Just to press your topping down a little bit, make sure they fit, firmly on top of the sushi, and they won't come out.
Punch around to the bat suit, punching the Joker in the face and saving Gotham. I am right. Back. Next up, we've got an exclusive interview with KBVR TV's resident Simpsons buff. Let's see what he has to say.
Hi everyone, I am with Steven Sandberg, the Assistant Director of Orange Media Network, and he also happens to be a diehard fan of The Simpsons. So when did you start watching the show?
Gosh, I started watching The Simpsons when I was 12 years old, so that was probably 1998. I started watching The Simpsons, and I've been watching it ever since.
Wow, so do you have like a favorite character or a favorite episode?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's so many to choose from. It's been on for so long now, but some of my favorites are in the early, probably the first 7 or 8 seasons of The Simpsons, and so many to choose from. Probably one of my favorites is the episode You Only Move Twice, which is an episode where Homer gets a new job in a town called Cypress Creek at a place called Globex Corporation. And it's an incredible job. He's made a supervisor, he's given a ton of responsibility, benefits, his boss really likes him and trusts him, he's got a great house. The only catch is his boss is a supervillain who's trying to take over the world. So now he's got a balance between that. And it's a great episode. Albert Brooks is the voice of his boss, Hank Scorpio, with an incredible guest performance. And that's probably one of my favorites.
Nice. Okay. So do you have a favorite character then?
You know, the older I get, the more I relate to Homer.
Okay, that's funny.
You know, as a dad and just someone who's been in the workplace, like you kind of relate more and more to his experience sometimes. Not everything. Homer's kind of an idiot, but like, you know, there's aspects to it. Like what I find really interesting about his character is that the writers have given him a lot of layers over the years. He's not just like a buffoon.
Yeah, for sure.
He has his moments where he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but sometimes he's also a really caring father and a really caring husband. He cares a lot about his family and has a sense of morals. And then every once in a while he falls off of a cliff, you know, trying to jump over Springfield Gorge.
I'm gonna make it! This is the greatest thrill of my life! I'm king of the world! Woohoo! Woohoo!
For sure, yeah.
But there's a lot of layers to him, and I think more and more over the years I find little pieces of that I relate to.
Nice. Are there any aspects of the show that resonate with you in any way?
What I really love about The Simpsons is that it's a nice mix of very silly humor and very smart humor.
For sure.
And that comes a lot, I think, from just the talented writers that they've had over the years. They've had people who have gone on to do a lot of different things. Like Conan O'Brien was a writer on The Simpsons for a while, and he obviously went on to have a long career as talk show host, late night talk show host. But the combination of like visual gags and kind of dumb humor, and then these references to things that most people wouldn't get, but still are funny later on. You know, you and I were talking before the interview started that the character of Mr. Burns is really funny.
Yeah.
Part of it comes from the fact that he's like evil and a terrible boss, and there's humor that comes from that. And then there are these references the writers make to like pre-war America, talking about like revulcanizing his tires and filling it up with petroleum distillate.
You there, fill it up with petroleum distillate and revulcanize my tires.
For sure,
You know,
he comes up with the fancy terms for everything.
Yeah, he needs to send the letter to the Prussian consulate in Siam by aeromail on the 430 autogyro.
Yeah,
what is this?
That's
you know?
awesome. You got those like words out.
I just watched that episode last night, so it's like fresh in my mind.
That's perfect. Awesome. And last question: do you think the show has peaked?
Yeah, but not because it's bad, but just because it's been on so long.
Yeah.
There's no show that could stay consistently at the top of its game for 33 years, however long it's been on.
Yeah.
I think it probably peaked before like you and the crew of Geeking Out About It were born, like in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Just because it's been on so long, you know, and so I think its first 8 seasons were probably the golden era.
Yeah.
And I think since then, there's been more quote unquote bad seasons of The Simpsons than good seasons of The Simpsons. But like even then, a later episode of The Simpsons is probably better than most sitcoms that are on TV now.
Right.
So it's definitely peaked a long time ago. But you know, it's still consistently got its moments. So.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you very much for talking more about The Simpsons. It certainly is a wonderful show. So thank you for coming here and talking about it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed that interview done by our very own Kaylin. Now we're going to talk about some of the really cool connections to Oregon with The Simpsons, which I feel like makes the show a little bit more personal for us.
Yeah.
Just because
We're in Oregon.
We're in Oregon, and we're so close.
Yeah, it's worth noting that Springfield is meant to be basically any town USA, right? It's meant to be the most generic, could be anywhere in the United States town. That's why it's called Springfield, because there's so many Springfields. But because the creator, Matt Groening, was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, the actual Springfield is Springfield, Oregon, which is right next to Eugene. Actually, it's only about 35, 40 minutes from here.
Yeah.
Just a hop, a skip, and a jump away. A lot of like his personal life is reflected in The Simpsons. One of the main things are a lot of the main characters in the show are either named after his family or around like places and streets in Portland.
Yeah.
So like for example, his father is named Homer. His grandfather's named Abraham, so you have like that whole thing. And then both his younger sisters are named Lisa and Maggie, so they've all been immortalized in this world of Springfield, which is so cool. Like imagine having a cartoon character named after you.
I know. I wonder if like the characters at all resemble like the actual real people.
I hope not. I would be offended.
Yeah.
I would be offended if I was. If that's accurate, be like, why'd you gotta call me out like that
For sure,
in front of everybody
for
30 years?
That's true. And that would make, I guess that would make Matt Bart, which, I don't know if I'd want to.
Yeah.
But it's still cool, like, that they're names at least. And then there's a ton of other like a lot of the side characters like Flanders, Mr. Burns, aka Burnside, Mayor Quimby, and Reverend Lovejoy all share names with like well-known streets in Portland. So it's really cool. Like, it's such a cool way to like incorporate the real
show,
world. But it's not like obvious. Like I'm not from Portland, so I don't know that there's like a ton of streets that are like named like that. But
it's definitely very subtle.
I'm from Gresham, which is the poor part of Portland, to be honest. It's not technically part of Portland, but it's part of the greater Portland metropolitan area, and we were one of the first cities to be connected by TriMet, which means I actually know a decent amount about what's going on in Portland. So for me, and for a lot of other natives who are very used to the names, it actually is pretty fun how much Oregon is reflected in The Simpsons. Not that I was super familiar with The Simpsons in the first place. I wasn't technically allowed to watch it when I was a kid. But it's fun now. And it should be fun for a lot of other people here at Oregon State who very likely are from the Portland area. There's a high density of population in the Portland area. And if they're not, they're probably from Eugene, the other density, the high density population. And Springfield's right next door.
And the other influence for The Simpsons. So we're very Simpsons oriented in Oregon.
No, it's true. I think that there's a lot that's reflected there, except for the nuclear power plants, because to my knowledge, I don't think outside of Oregon State's personal nuclear power plant, which is actually only used to train our nuclear sciences guys, I don't think there are any. Someone can write in the comments if you know of a nuclear power plant in Oregon.
Power plant lore.
We don't ever get any comments, but if you know of one.
Fish or anything. I don't see any three-eyed fish in the rivers.
Nuclear power plants don't usually cause three-eyed fish. All right.
Only in The Simpsons.
I'm actually very pro-nuclear power. Go France for having the guts. I usually don't like France, but I'll go with France on that one.
Nice.
Nuclear power plants. Yeah. I think one of the other cool things about The Simpsons is like how, or at least one of the things I know a lot about The Simpsons is like through its like weaving into pop culture and like all the different, like I think one of the big things with The Simpsons is like predicting the future, or like there's whole conspiracy theories about that, which I think is so like, of course, like.
Well, I mean, because obviously Matt Groening's from the future. I mean,
totally, absolutely.
It'd be the
only explanation for sure.
If you have never been down the conspiracy rabbit hole of Simpsons future predictions, check it out, because
it's something. Yeah, you got to do it at least once. I feel like just.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a show running for that long, like you're bound to get some things right, and
there's a lot,
you know.
Yeah, there's your
the writers are
President
also
Trump.
geniuses.
They got it all the way down to President Trump, and it wasn't like a short-term prediction where it's like, oh, he's running this year. No, they called that in the '90s.
Yeah, it's
when he was still hosting The Apprentice as his primary job. I mean, can you just imagine? No one would have thought that was going to happen.
No.
Although I guess no one would have thought that Ronald Reagan was going to be the president if you were in the 50s and you're looking at an actor. But I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know, it's like so crazy. Like they have a lot of like generic ones, like I think they did like different types of like technology stuff, but like, yeah, like the weirdly specific ones like Trump or like other things, it's like,
you get the standing, waving. It's like, how did you get that? You got the scene. You got the movements in the scene correctly. This guy had source material. That's what I'm saying. He was he was tracing. He wasn't coming up with any of this stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it makes sense, but that's so interesting. Like,
no, it's not like they got everything right, but they have the nice excuse of they're not trying to predict the future, right? So when they get it, it's just a lucky extra bonus.
Yeah, they're like, haha, we did it. And then
because if you say you're predicting the future and then you get stuff wrong, people are like, well, you only right 10% of the time.
Exactly,
but if you just make a show and then happen to have some correct things in there.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, the show does an excellent job of covering so much content and like pop culture and everything. So they definitely have a lot to discuss and like predict, which I think is really interesting. But yeah, honestly, I feel like The Simpsons, like when I'm watching it, I feel like it's like it's a show that is literally creating a timeline of like our history and all that, because I'll be watching it and you can watch an episode from any time and it will like accurately, or like maybe not accurately, but it'll kind of mirror, be influenced of what's going on in that time. So it's
like a time capsule.
It's a time capsule, exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Like whatever the important events are that are happening when the episode was made. So if it takes place during the Gulf War, somebody's going to mention something that's around that. Because since it started in the 80s, admittedly the end of the 80s, but since it started in the 80s, it's had quite a lot of cultural development to cover.
Absolutely,
There's been a lot that's been happening in America since '89.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many things you can like talk about and like
Simpsons episode.
Yeah, like call back to, or just even like have like one of your amazing side characters just walk by and be like, so how about the Gulf War? Like what you said.
How about the Gulf War? How about that Gulf War?
That Gulf War, guys.
No, they probably didn't do that. Although, you know what? That is the level of humor that I would expect, actually.
Yeah.
It's a fairly adult show. And I think it was, I can't say it's the first of the adult cartoons because Heavy Metal came out before then, which is a movie. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, you know what I'm talking about. But it definitely was the one that made adult cartoons popular, you know?
Definitely.
That's the reason why there are 1,000, Family Guys and the American Dads and all that are just kicking around. It's because The Simpsons has been running for so long. And The Simpsons is definitely more family oriented than a lot of the newer adult ones because it was the first one. It was allowed to be more generic.
Yeah. It
but
can
it
be
was still
as
fairly
crude as
adult.
like some of the newer ones.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit more subtle with certain things, for sure.
Sure. I'm just saying there was a reason I wasn't allowed to watch it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Same here. Like.
Yeah.
And it even, I never really got into it, so it's not been my favorite bag, but it is yours.
Yeah, I do really love the show. Everybody kind of has like their comfort show, and I think The Simpsons is definitely kind of one of my comfort shows. I've grown an attachment to the characters for sure, and I think again I love it because every episode is different, and so you kind of never know what you're gonna get, and especially because there are so many episodes. Obviously, some are better than others, but I think that's what makes it interesting for me. Like I don't get tired of it because there's so much new content in it, and like
there's all like even though it's been on for so many years, like it's still like I feel like you don't get a ton of repeated stories.
Yeah, I really don't feel that. Yeah,
or like plot lines at least don't get like super repetitive, but it's super cool. Like that they can even make a show for that long, and like have like the world not even get tired of it. Like everyone still loves
it. The Simpsons will never die. Is what
they really
says.
won't. 33 seasons and counting.
Yeah.
But we're going to take a quick break real quick, and when we come back, we'll keep talking about The Simpsons.
Yes.
audio, man. It's in the air. It's the fluctuations that vibrate our ear holes and make the cochlea sensitive, you know. You can't ignore it, and you try to start measuring it, and it just pulls you in. Well, I used to try to play music on my own, make the sounds from my own hands and instruments. Then I started recording. Upon hearing myself in my recordings, I decided I should just record. When you're a young adult who is serious about pursuing media as a career or even a side hustle, a lot of people won't take you seriously. OMN is cool because not only will they take you seriously, they'll push you and they'll give you all the tools to really try to do something special with it and let you be creative about it. And so that's what's been special about OMN to me. I'm Sam Lay, and I'm a student engineer at Orange Media Network.
Welcome back. I did mention we were going to be coming back to it, but we've sort of reached a point now where we're just talking about why we enjoy things at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's I think there's one more thing. So we talked about how The Simpsons has had an impact on other adult comedies and stuff, but I think we should also mention it's also very incorporated into the real world in terms of Universal's taking it are there's a part of Universal where you can meet Homer, and I think you can get they have the big donuts that they have on the show.
Okay.
I don't know. It's but it's it's cool, even though, because they're not big Disney, they're not owned, well, now they're owned by Disney, but
yeah.
The Simpsons did get bought by Disney.
Yeah.
Now, I remember the commercial when that came out, and they're like, look, we better appease our overlords.
And the Disney Plus thing, it's also The Simpsons at the bottom, which is
exactly.
Was it Fox that owns The Simpsons in the first place?
I think so.
They acquired it somewhere around that period of time.
I think, because it had to have been.
Yeah. That's got to really complicate their deals with Universal Studios, I tell you what.
Yeah. That's a big rivalry in its own. But
for sure, yeah.
Now, I've actually never been to the Simpsons area at the Universal Studios.
Yeah, I've never been either, but I want to go.
I've been to Universal Studios, and I've walked past the Simpsons area, but I never went in.
Yeah.
I feel it'd be cool. I feel it'd be very bright and vibrant and exciting. It'd be cool to meet those kind of characters. It's cool to meet cartoon characters because you're I know this isn't real, but it's still cool. You get to see them.
For sure, yeah.
In some
I guess I never needed to see the Simpsons in real life because I live next door to it.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we were talking about how it was all Anytime USA, but it's technically actually here in Oregon. I live next door. So I never needed to go see it and be like, oh, look, there it is. Because
yeah.
I live 2 minutes from Burnside.
Which I think is so cool.
Not actually. Yeah. I think I live more 10 minutes from Burnside. I'm out in the sticks a little bit, but still.
That's closer than I live to Burnside.
Yeah.
Not now. Now I live in Corvallis.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I grew up there. So we went quite a ways.
Yeah.
It's definitely cool. There's so many things. I feel it's such a hefty show. There's so many other paths you can go down and.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, kind of what you mentioned earlier, there's something for everyone. That's so true. There's so much, and even the storylines are incredible, but I also love the graphics. They definitely have some interesting episodes where they really take you on quite journeys. Yeah, which is very interesting. So.
Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for tonight, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like us and you like what we're doing, you can follow us on our other social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. We also stream on Twitch sometimes, so check that out if you're interested in video games. Also, if you like other KBVR TV content, make sure you check out our YouTube channel because that's where everything gets posted. And I think that's it.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.